G'day guys, so look at that bad boy. I've finally saved up enough money to buy myself a 3-inch exhaust for the Mazda BT50 Project Cyan. So in case you don't know, there's a couple of reasons that getting an exhaust or a bigger exhaust is a really good thing. It pretty much allows the engine to get rid of the exhaust gases a lot faster. So that gives you pretty much 3 major benefits. For one, it means that virtually the gases get out a lot quicker, which means that you're going to be running the engine a little bit cooler. The second benefit is you're probably going to see an increase or better fuel economy. And then the third is you're going to see a little bit of a power increase. Now, if you couple an exhaust with a tune-up of the ECU, you're going to see a big increase. I don't have the coin for that at the moment, but you still will see a power increase regardless. So this exhaust is from Manta. Manta's a Perth-based company, which is pretty awesome. If you have any dramas, you know, you can just go back to them and talk to them about it. A couple of my friends have had these exhausts and they've had no dramas with them so far, so that was another reason that I went for it. And also they're pretty reasonably priced. This is just a mild steel exhaust because I don't have the extra $700 to fork out to buy a stainless steel exhaust. Obviously stainless steel is going to last a lot longer. But that being said, with mild steel, if you do get any holes in it, you just grab the welder out, give it a bit of a buzz, and you can fix it right up. So today, I'm hopefully going to install this. There's always stuff that can go wrong when you're doing exhausts. One thing that could go wrong is I installed a battery tray under the tray, and I'm not sure if that's going to interfere or not. We'll find out a little bit later on. But pretty much, to get started, I'm just going to pull out the old exhaust starting from the back of the car and working forward. So let's get into it. Before we get into installing this exhaust system, I'm just going to show you guys how to play the Australian didgeridoo. So normally they're a little bit more decorated than this, but this is more of an industrial kind of looking version. Alright, here we go. So I've been practicing for a while, but I'm starting to get a little bit better at it. Alright, let's get into this. Gotta love rusty exhaust bolts. Man, these bolts are seriously rusty. Anybody would think I go driving on the beach or something. So these exhaust hangers can be a bit of a pain in the butt sometimes. A little bit of lubrication never goes astray. Why you got to be so painful? Alright, here we go. I think I got it. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. So the exhaust goes from these hangers here to that hanger at the back there, but it bends up in the center here. So I'm not too sure if it's going to foul on this battery tray that I've made, but it's one of those things that I won't know until I do it. So just fingers crossed that it all kind of fits. Tell you what, these nuts just don't feel nice at all. If you need an extra pair of hands just to hold the exhaust, a little strap or even a cable tie is pretty handy. Look at that, guys! I got 2 didgeridoos. How good's that? So all I got left to undo under the car is pretty much these 2 bolts there, and then we're into the engine bay. So we're in the engine bay now. First things first, we got to just remove this heat shield from the turbo. So lots of opportunity to slice your hands on the heat shields. That's usually pretty awesome. Oh, that's one of the bolts. Where's the rest of them? If you can't see something, these little mirrors are just legendary for tight spaces, and you can generally see what you can't see from the top with one of these things. Oh, alright, well that's one of them there. That bolt's a little bit tight, so I'm just going to try a little breaker bar on it. There we go. Alright, cool. Is there any more? Yep, still one more somewhere. It's like a game of hide and seek, you know? Except, at the end of the day, nobody really wins. So I found that last bolt that's holding it, but tell you what, it's in a pretty tight spot. It's going to be interesting, I tell you that much. It's right underneath. Alrighty, I managed to get that last bolt out. It was a total pain in the butt, tucked up at the very bottom. It was ridiculous, but anyway, it's out now, so that's all good. Now the fun begins. So pretty much at this point you want to make sure that you got the right exhaust system. So you pretty much just want to visually have a look at how this bolts up and just have a look at how yours bolts up. Just make sure it looks the same, because if it doesn't look the same, well, there's no point doing any more, is there? So visually looking at it, it's got the same imprint on the top that this one does. It's got 3 holes for the bolts to go through and nuts, so that's alright. And it looks like it sits at about the right position with this as well. These are the 2 bolts that I took off underneath. So everything looks like it's a match. So yeah, now let's take the nuts off that last piece and get it out of there pretty much. So as long as they come off without too much hassle, it should be all downhill from here, hopefully. So now pretty much what I got to do is remove these 3 bolts and nuts. The one underneath is going to be the hardest to get to, but we'll just see how we go with it. Alrighty, so I've managed to crack the 2 top ones. Pretty much now I need to try and figure out how the heck I'm going to crack that bottom one, because it is right underneath. So pretty much the only thing I can get in there is my 17mm spanner, because my socket's head's too big to get down there. Awesome stuff. I got it. Oh man, that's awesome. So I managed to crack that bottom one as well, so that's the hardest part pretty much over with. Alright, cool. So that's the hardest one to get out done. Alright, second bolt out. So all I got left to do is just get this last one off. This one's being a little bit sticky for some reason. Don't know what's going on with that nut, but that nut was not happy, hey. But it looks like it's alright. Doesn't look like the thread's damaged or anything. Alright, so technically now this whole thing should just come out really easy. Oh yeah, look at that. We managed to get it out. Awesome stuff. So it should be all downhill from here, right? Right? So again, just confirming I've got the right exhaust. They both look identical. They've got this little divot in the same spots. So it all looks like it's gonna match, which is awesome. So that's the awesome thing about the 3-inch exhaust. You've got this nice long bend. It's 3-inch the whole way, so it's going to allow those gases to get out so much faster. So this is what it's all about. Also, when you get an aftermarket exhaust, you get like a little bung here. So the idea with this is if you ever want to get like a gauge to see where your exhaust temps are sitting at, you pretty much just screw that gauge in right here, or the sensor for the gauge anyway, and then you can monitor what your engine temps are doing. So that's awesome, because engine temps usually give you an indicator of how hot the engine's running long before the coolant temps start to rise. So it's a really neat thing to do. I'm not going to do it at this stage, but sometime in the future it's there, ready and waiting. Alright, let's start putting this thing back in. It's one of those times when I'm really glad I washed the car properly after going forward driving last time, because man, there's nothing worse than getting the dirt and sand in your eyes. So I've got all of these bolts started, so I might go upstairs now and do the 3 big bolts that bolt onto the back of the turbo. So this is the nut that was giving me grief, so hopefully it doesn't give me any more dramas. Are you serious? Oh, that's funny as. I put the gasket the wrong way around. What a classic. Oh, mate. Alright, I'm going to fix that and then we'll be back. So I've got the gasket at the back of the turbo on the right way this time, so that's a pretty handy little thing to do. Also, I've had to take that little bracket off at the bottom that holds the bottom of the dump pipe, because it just wasn't allowing me to get the 3 bolts in that bolts up to the turbo. So I've got some anti-seize grease here. This is high temperature anti-seize grease. So I'm just going to put a little bit on the threads of the 3 bolts that go into the turbo. It just allows you to get them back out one day if you ever need to. Alrighty guys, well the dump pipe's hooked up to the turbo, so that's awesome. It was a little bit hard to get that bolt underneath because I wasn't actually able to use a socket on it because of the size of the pipe. There wasn't that much of the flange left. So pretty much just had to use a spanner. I ended up removing a little heat shield just to give me a little bit more room, but yeah, she's all hooked up now, so I can pretty much put this heat shield back on that I took off earlier. Man, learn how to talk. And then we'll head underneath the car and work our way towards the back. So it should be literally all downhill from here. Famous last words, right? Heat shield's back in place, under the car we go. Look at that awesome sticker. Alrighty guys, so this is the nuts and bolts and gaskets that they provide. So the gasket pretty much just sits in between the two pieces of pipe. You just pop the bolt through, tighten up the nut, done, pretty simple. So let's get this bad boy up and then we can put the joining piece of pipe in between. So I can actually fit my fist in between the battery tray and the exhaust, so that's awesome news. There was nothing really to worry about. Alrighty guys, well, one thing that I've already noticed with the exhaust is how low it sits. I'm definitely going to need to cut it, probably somewhere about there, because that's just going to get hit on rocks and everything else. So everything's in, everything's bolted up, everything's tight, which is awesome because I'm already running late for dinner. But anyway, everything went in fairly smoothly. I mean, the trickiest bit was the 3 bolts that hold the dump pipe onto the turbo. But, you know, you're always going to have tricky bits no matter what you're doing in your engine bay pretty much. So I've cut the exhaust so I've got a little bit more clearance because it was sticking way down below the spare tyre. So sooner or later it would have hit something. But pretty much today I did a little bit of running around town, so I had the opportunity to, you know, go 100 in it, take off at a few traffic lights and get a bit of a feel for how it sounds. And I've got to say I'm really happy with it because it's actually really quiet, which is good for me. Like, I wanted a quiet exhaust for a couple of reasons. But if you want a nice droney exhaust for your Mazda BT50, maybe don't go with Manta because it's pretty quiet. Like, Manta say that this is a medium noise exhaust, but personally I reckon it's a low soft exhaust. But besides that, really happy with the install. Went really well, everything fit. In the last car, my Mazda Bravo, we had to custom fabricate brackets and all sorts of things, but this one went straight in. It's given me a little bit more power, kind of just above 2000 RPM, which is also really cool. So yeah, overall I'm really stoked with it. So hopefully I don't have any dramas with it in the future, but if I do, I'll let you guys know. Anyway guys, catch you in another video, eh? Thanks for watching. Seek adventure!